All right, everyone, we're going to talk about something that you may have heard us talk about over time here, and we're going to showcase it on the roster a little bit. Is going to be the difference between a kit-based character and a stat-based character. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't understand kind of realistically how to gauge that, what to do with it, and how to use the information even when you have it. So we're going to talk about a kit-based character, and we're going to use a character that I think probably exemplifies it. Because a lot of what they do, the buttons don't mean that much, all right? So you're going to look at their buttons and see what they do, and we're going to talk about why EBONY is a kit-based character, and you know, even though you may want bigger stars on him to help him survive, the kit is independent of value, right? So, all right, he steals 3% of the enemy's health. Okay. Apply slow, which is a debuff. All right. And fill speed bar by self for all ally speed. So every single one of these isn't a damage-based stat. None of this is taking into account anything other than his focus. Okay. So that's something that is usually built into it. And it isn't something that's been as indicative of needing red stars or high stats to overcome. Some characters have eventually had to get reworked because their kit, cough, cough, Iceman, didn't have enough focus to get things done. So this is an exemplifying of a kit-based character. We can look at a lot of other kit-based characters. Kingpin, another kit-based character. A lot of what Kingpin does is independent of the stars and red stars. The assists that he does with with villains, and the fact that he provides offense up and defense up, which is by far, early on in the game, he was one of the few characters that provided that stat. Now everybody's providing offense up, defense down, slow. I mean, there's all these just crazy mechanics that are coming down to it, and they all have it built into different specials. So this is the real power creep is you know what they can do when they have a kit. So the idea is, do you want to promote him to high red stars and high stars? Well, realistically, the kit's going to function on some of these characters independent of star, independent of red stars. You got to figure out, you know, we have this infographic. It's going to be in the description again that EBONY and Dr. Chaos put together that showcases and highlights, you know, some of the breakpoints for stats for things like focus and resistance, where those are the sweet spot to work in like a war environment. So kit-based characters typically have the largest longevity on your roster. They don't get power crept very easily. And another kit-based character, we're going to talk about it, and this is something, she kind of produces a conundrum, because she's not just a kit-based character. She's also a stat-based character. And we'll talk about what that means here in just a moment. So at the very base of her kit, okay, she always applies -10 speed to all enemies. That makes her one of the most impactful characters to ever come to the game. What that means is it takes their speed value, it drops 10%. So it changes the order of which enemies and characters act when she's on the field. That is by far one of the most kit-based effects. However, she also has some stat-based bonuses, and when characters have exceptional value, they're not just kit-based characters, they could also be stat-based characters. Now let's talk about stat-based characters, because this is where we're going to see probably one of the best stat-based characters ever to come to the game, and we're going to talk about why. So Black Bolt's been the top of the tier of damage in the game for a long time. Since he showed up, he's pretty much been at the top 10 of overall damage, and he's probably getting a resurgence. But the drawback with that is way back in the early part of the game, there's a character that sunk down into my roster that used to be the highest damage character in the game. And so stat-based characters are if you make investments in them, you have a smaller window to keep them relevant. And this is something that we're going to be talking about, because there's going to be some more characters that happen to fall into this category here. I don't even know where my Rocket is. How far okay, Rocket. The last time he was relevant was probably right around the time that Minerva came out. All right, they had a small window where Guardians were the top of the pecking order, and because he really did have a large, damage stat, he had some pretty cool abilities, but there was some RNG built into his kit. The assists are interesting and an interesting mechanic, but he was the stat monster for a long time. So, stat based are exactly that. So we're going to talk a little bit about a character that came to the game that is so White Tiger. Okay, White Tiger is a stat based character. A lot of this you could see is because of the fact that they have like high piercing, multiple attacks. It's all based off of their overall damage, 600% damage. All right, and just an insane 35,000 stat. At some point, a character could be released that makes that, or characters, plural, could be released in year 3 that take her down so far down that those stats are no longer relevant. It happened to Rocket, it'll happen over time. It's just the way that power creep occurs. Characters that are kit-based are very hard to power creep. Now, again, base health is always going to be a product of how long they can survive, but nobody's looking at Minerva, who is, approaching her 2-year anniversary of being accidentally released, if you think about those rumors, on your roster, and she's still one of the most relevant characters. She's an instant level up whenever Dark Dimension shows up, or you're challenging high-end content like the Doom raids. She's impactful because her kit just never gets outdated. The fact that she can take enemy 15% of enemy's health and redistribute it to her team makes her someone that probably won't fall to the bottom of the roster anytime soon. So the question I get asked all the time is, who should I promote, Rem? And the answer is, it's such a roster dependent situation, and it has to be something that you think about, because realistically, silver and gold promotion credits are not coming in fast enough for us to bring characters into relevance when their kits are always irrelevant, and when their stats are always at their highest peak, right? So a character like Silver Surfer is in a very rarefied category when it comes to promotions going hard for Red Stars. He is not only a kit-based character because of the fact that he has the percentage resistances and he does these things without having to rely on the stats. He is also a stat machine. At 3 stars, 3 red, he has more health than we saw from a Rocket Raccoon that has just fallen so far off of the relevant chart here. Symbiote Spider-Man, same thing. Anytime Dark Dimension shows up, anytime you want to think about a raid, these tags are good, but he also has stats. He's also doing things on his attack, extending debuffs. All right? That's a kit-based effect. Slows is a kit-based effect. Stuns. All these controls. So it's going to come down to, can you bring up the character and the team in the window that they're most relevant? I regret bringing up Emma to 6 red stars. Now, she does have a high health, and she does have this passive, and I did put the ISO on her. I left her a striker because it's a personal taste thing for me, because I like to have her kill Black Order when she's able to flip those buffs and let you clone Ebony Maw and watch your opponent lose, because realistically they've got quite a few counters now. Same reason why I haven't clicked G15 on her. I love her as a character, but the drawback is her time is nigh. Her kit's valuable. I might be using her on arena defense. I don't know yet. I don't know if she's going to be working in that regard, specifically with Silver Surfer and Doom, to the point where I'm going to need it. The drawback is she actually can potentially make Silver Surfer less effective by clearing his debuffs. So something to think about down the road when you're building teams. So a character that I just brought up, I brought up a stat character. And so what I did was I'm trying to jump the meta. I think there's a potential, because he is a cosmic character, that there's a 3-piece combo potentially with Beast and Jubilee, Doom. Okay, in addition with Silver Surfer, they might be able to hold an arena. I'm going to test this out. So I invested a 6 red character in a very, very powerful character. Remember, he often has offense up. His abilities are on low cooldowns and they're just high damage. But he's a stat-based character. At some point, I will be sitting here telling you, well, I regret bringing him up because he literally has fallen out of relevance because he just no longer does what I need him to do because the power falls short in the current change. If characters suddenly have 700 and 800k health and he's only doing 300 and 400k to the damage, where he's not one-shotting them, he's not giving speed to his team. Right now with this striker on him, he is just destroying the opponents, and I'm able to auto even the hardest Doom raids. That being said, at some point, if you invest a gold promotion credit in a character that is stat-based, you've lost some value. So the idea is you want to invest in a character that's significant enough on your roster in the time that you're using it. Is that red star going to help you overcome content you don't already overcome? Is it going to propel you into higher arena ranks? Because that's probably one of the most important things, being able to get more cores per day, barring any of the things that we've talked about as far as exploits. Being able to get more cores per day is going to help your overall economy and become more important. Arena and raids are probably the two largest value you can bring to yourself from being able to do that. So if you're not overcoming arena or raids, you probably should not consider upgrading that character, just in my opinion. War offense team is a niche. It really is a niche because you only use that 3 times a week. And hopefully it isn't at the point where your team is ineffective. You just have to choose your target better if you don't have the right stars and red stars on them. Hopefully you have that opportunity. If for some reason you're looking at an opponent and you're like, oh boy, I would be able to beat this if I had a 6 or 7 red star character, by all means, barring that you're not progressing in raids, that's probably where you should do it. But it's individual. So should I upgrade Silver Surfer? We don't know how much or if we're ever going to be able to upgrade him. But I will say, if you have the chance to get high stars, and by the way, never upgrade a character until you get the yellow stars on him, and hit nudge nudge. We don't know if we're going to have access to him and be able to promote him anytime soon here. So you have to make that decision as a personal choice. You can always ask, but I'm going to need a frame of reference to help you make that decision. And remember, guys, the community is really helpful to help understand where these are. And if this is the first time you guys are checking in, you guys can check me here on Twitch. You guys can check me over on YouTube. You guys can actually hang out, ask me questions, and I'm not just going to give you a blanket answer like, yes, upgrade this character. I'm going to try to figure out the frame of reference to help you, because that's why I make content, because I really want to help you. Remember, I do things so you don't have to. These Axemen are great. Shadowlands is probably a little bit better from a war offense team, but this Axemen team is doing something that you were not able to do with even the symbiotes when they came out. Something to consider as you're looking at characters to promote. And if you revisit this, and this is currently March, if you come back in April, we may have a different conversation about characters that as the power creep sets in, every single time these are going to be different conversations. So kit-based characters are usually the safest assumption, but you probably want to bring them to 4 or 5 red stars, because red stars don't matter besides the focus and resistance. Love you much.